Techisode TV. Welcome back, guys. I'm Eric from Techisode TV. This is Samsung's Galaxy S26 Ultra, and I've been using this for just over a couple months now, and it's been mostly incredible. But there's one thing that's given me a bit of pause for having this be my daily driver, and it's probably not what you think. But I want to start with some of the great things I've noticed with this device, and the first thing is battery life. I can consistently get about 1.5 to 2 full days of battery life, so about 46 to 47 hours of battery life with this between charge cycles, and that is really impressive. Now, to get that full 2 days of battery life, it's typically when I'm on Wi-Fi all day and I'm not driving around all over the place using GPS or cell service or anything like that. And I typically don't spend a ton of time on my phone throughout the day, so if you are heavily on your phone, don't expect to get that full 2 days. If I'm on the phone a bit more, or I'm just out and about driving a bunch of different places, using the GPS without having the phone charging at the same time, and doing things like that, then my battery life drops to about a day and a half, so 24 to about 36-ish hours. But in my testing, there is one thing I noticed that does significantly reduce the overall battery life, and that's heavily using the camera. So whenever my kids have sporting events, I'm filming a lot in 4K HDR, and the camera's on for like an hour plus at a time as I'm getting ready to take pictures of things or film. And that brings my battery life down to about 20 hours. So if you're gonna be heavily using the camera, like maybe on a vacation, like Disney for example, and you're taking tons of photos and videos, then this will still absolutely get you through the day, but you will need to put this back on the charger when you go to sleep at night. Now, here's the thing though, let's say you forgot to put it on the charger at night and you only have like 30 minutes in the morning to charge it before you have to head back out to another like Disney trip or something. That's actually not a problem because the S26 Ultra now supports 60-watt charging and it is crazy fast. So 15 minutes of charging starting at 2%, I was able to get to about 55%, which for most of my days, that's actually enough to get through the whole day. If I need a bit more juice, 20 minutes got me to 68%, and 30 minutes got me to 84%, and a full charge was at 47 minutes. That's really fast, especially considering how long the battery lasts. Samsung also has faster wireless charging as well now. You can get up to 25-watt wireless charging, but you do need a special case to do that. So Samsung's official MagSafe cases do support it, and I know that Spiegen's case supports it as well. But this Taurus case, for example, does not support that full 25-watt charging. So that's just something to be aware of if you're buying a case and you want to use that 25-watt charging. You have to make sure it's supported. And you also obviously need a 25-watt capable charger like this Qi 2 charger from Samsung. This particular charger works incredibly well and is super compact, but there are some third-party options as well if you prefer. And the 25-watt charging is also still super fast. It's obviously not as fast as the 60-watt charging, but here's just some numbers for reference. So starting at 2% and then throwing on that 25-watt wireless charger, in about 30 minutes I got to 57%, and it took an hour and 2 minutes to get all the way to 100%. So still incredibly quick, especially if you get one of those 25-watt wireless chargers for the car. You can add a significant amount more battery life by the time you get to your destination. Something else that'll noticeably reduce your battery life is obviously gaming. So I did test this out with Call of Duty Mobile at the maximum graphics settings. I played for an hour and my battery dropped about 15%. So if that trend continues, you're looking at about 6 hours of total battery life if you started with a full charge and you're just gaming straight through. Now, it could be a little bit more or a little bit less depending on the type of game you're playing. Like if you're playing a game that has a ton of ray tracing and it's like really intensive graphics, then you could expect maybe closer to the 5-hour mark. But if you're playing lighter games like Subway Surfer or something like that, then you could expect a bit more, maybe 7 or more hours of gaming time. When it comes to performance, this is obviously incredible. It's got the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 chip in it, so yeah, opening, closing applications, using those applications, everything runs really quickly, even productivity, exporting videos, editing videos. Not that I edit on this, but I have tested it to see how it performs, and basically anything I throw at it, it just performs really well. I don't have any lag or hiccups. I'm not just sitting there waiting for the phone to figure out what's going on. It is really fast, but it's been that way for the past few years with the Ultra series devices anyway. Something else that I notice frequently with the S26 Ultra when I'm using it outside is just how bright the screen gets. Like this thing gets so unbelievably bright and easy to see outside, even in direct sunlight. especially when you take into account the anti-reflective display, which helps cut out even more glare, making it even easier to see outside. But if we compare this to the S25 Ultra from last year, the anti-reflectivity isn't quite as good, and that's because of the changes they had to make for the privacy display, which we'll talk about now. This is something that I've used way more than I thought I would, and if you're not familiar, the privacy display is what allows you to turn the screen and have everything on it basically disappear as you turn it. And let me go ahead and turn that privacy display off, and I'll do it again. And you'll see that I can see at a much steeper angle with the privacy display disabled. And I found myself using this a lot in public spaces whenever I need to look at any sort of banking or money-related stuff. It is nice to easily be able to just turn that privacy display on and not have everyone near me be able to see what I'm looking at. And the great thing about the privacy display is I don't have to manually turn it on and off every time either. I can just set it to automatically turn on for any specific applications I want. So anytime I open up my banking application, it just automatically turns on. Nobody can see anything in there. Anytime I have to enter a PIN or password, it automatically turns on. When notifications come in, automatically turns on again and covers the notification. So Samsung did a great job implementing this feature, and it is something I use a lot more than I thought I would. Now, we can't have a 2-month review of the Galaxy S26 Ultra without talking about the cameras, because this is one of the biggest sell points for getting the Ultra series device over like the S26 Plus or the regular S26. And Samsung does not disappoint with this camera array, and it's one of the reasons why anytime I go on any sort of family trip or vacation, I go to an amusement park with my family, anything like that, I will always switch to the latest Ultra series device so I have access to those long zoom cameras. And this is especially useful for my kids at sporting events. I can zoom way in and still get a decent photo. This is something that's just not possible with the other devices I have. Samsung's also done an excellent job with the low light capability of these cameras. Like, just for reference, take a look at these two photos here. The left one represents what I could actually see with my eyes. This is like the true to life, if you were there with me, what you would see. And the right side is what the camera actually captured. Now, this was with that automatic 2-second nighttime long exposure, but even if I force it to not take long exposure photos and just capture a normal shot, it's still brighter than what I see with my own eyes. The selfie camera also does a great job of capturing a lot of detail without looking over sharpened, and portrait photos do a good job of separating me from the background. So overall, the cameras on the S26 Ultra are excellent, and it's why I always reach for this phone if I really want to get the best possible picture, especially for long zoom photos. Or videos. I mean, you could get long zoom videos too, that works really well as well. Now, we can't have a complete video on the S26 Ultra without talking about the S Pen, and this, as always, has been an absolutely incredible tool. Whether it's signing a document, marking up one of my guides. By the way, I have been working on the S26 Ultra camera guide. Stay tuned for that. Or just taking a quick note by pulling out the S Pen and immediately writing on the screen. The S Pen is an incredibly valuable tool if you know how to use it. But the bottom line is that the S Pen is incredible, and it's hard to live without it once you know how to use it. Now we need to talk about some of the issues I've had with this phone. And the first one is pretty small, but it was super easy to fix. It's just that Samsung hasn't done it yet. And it's the camera array placement. Because it's placed in the corner and it's so tall, the phone wobbles like crazy when it's laying flat on a table. And even with most cases, it still wobbles. This makes it unnecessarily difficult to just send a quick text with your phone on the table. It does require you to have to pick up the phone to send the text. And I know that that's a very small issue, but it is an issue that I notice. If Samsung would just take the camera array and rotate it 90 degrees and put it along the top instead, that would completely solve not only the wobble issue, but also the second issue with having this camera array like this, and that has to do with the MagSafe functionality. Now that Samsung's leaning into MagSafe functionality with their own entire lineup of MagSafe cases for the S26 Ultra, this camera array prevents you from using some MagSafe accessories, like wallets, for example. That camera bump is going to push the wallet off the back of the phone and make it much more likely to fall off when you're not expecting it. And the same is true for MagSafe power banks. Unless you have a specific cutout made for the S26 Ultra series, you have to put it on at a weird angle in order for it to work. The only way around this is to get a MagSafe case that is a flush fit to the back of the phone, like this one for the S25 Ultra. With this case, you can have wallets and MagSafe chargers fit completely flush on the back with no issues. But it does mean you have a thicker case now. So if you really wanted to have a MagSafe wallet or power bank with your S26 Ultra, you are going to be really limited because of that camera array. And hopefully with the S27 Ultra next year, Samsung does at least move this bottom camera up somewhere around here so we can finally get a good MagSafe experience. This next issue could be bigger or smaller depending on what you care about. And this one has to do with the S Pen. Specifically, the S26 Ultra no longer has that Bluetooth support. Samsung dropped it with the S25 Ultra and they haven't brought it back. This is a feature that allows you to take a picture with a simple press of the S Pen button, navigate through your menus, and even do custom things like change your pen color in the Samsung Notes app with a single or double press. And while I have found workarounds for most of the issues, like using my Galaxy Watch or voice commands for group photos, it's still pretty disappointing that the feature's gone. Now I can get over those two issues, but the hard part for me is honestly a bit of an unfair comparison because it's a form factor problem. Specifically, I've been using the Galaxy Z Fold 7 and Samsung's Trifold for quite a while now, and once you've used a foldable device, it's really hard to go back to a just standard candy bar style phone. But at the same time, these are both significantly more expensive than the S26 Ultra, with the Trifold being literally more than twice the cost. So before I get into this comparison, let me just point out that the S26 Ultra is an incredible device at its price point, and if I'm shopping for a candy bar style phone and comparing it to other candy bar style phones at the same price point, then I'm going to pick the S26 Ultra every single time. It's got excellent cameras, especially for zoom photos and videos, great battery life, super fast charging, an incredibly bright display for outdoor visibility, and even the privacy display, which is something no other device has. Alright, so the reason I prefer the foldables over the S26 Ultra comes down to one thing, and that's productivity. If I'm going to be using large Excel sheets for budgeting, do some deep dive research, need to open up multiple apps at the same time, or even watch some YouTube videos or movies and maybe even play some games, it's all so much better on these larger screens. And when you fold these down, particularly the Fold 7, it folds down to about the same form factor as the S26 Ultra at a similar weight. So in your pocket, these two devices feel pretty much the same. It's not until you get to the Trifold that the weight is significantly higher, but at the same time, you're also getting a dramatically larger screen. And looking at the thickness, you can tell that it's definitely thicker as well. But considering the fact that you have a full-fledged tablet in your pocket, this is actually really impressive and excellent to use. And in fact, once I'm done with this review, I'll be switching back to the Trifold as my full-time daily driver. But even still, there is one thing that's going to keep me coming back to the S26 Ultra time and time again, and that's the cameras. Because while the foldables have a decent camera array, especially for the 0.6 to maybe 3, maybe 5 times zoom range, as soon as you extend past that, the zoom photos and videos on these devices really just aren't that great. So for my kids' sporting events, or if I'm going to go on a family vacation, my SIM card's going back in the S26 Ultra to really be able to capture those memories. But I'll tell you what, if Samsung puts the Ultra series cameras in their foldables and adds S Pen support back into the foldable devices, I don't think I'll ever pick up an S Ultra series as a daily driver ever again. But again, unless you're doing high productivity things and you really need that larger display on Samsung's foldable devices, the S26 Ultra is going to be the best bet for most people anyway, especially considering the price discrepancy. And with 7 years of OS updates, you could legitimately use this phone for 5 or more years with no need to upgrade. That's it for this tech episode. Jesus loves you guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.